Shadows of Doubt is a first-person, immersive, bet they can't find me if I hide under the bed, detective simulator from Coal-Powered Games. After much anticipation, it's finally been released on Steam Early Access, and the question is Shadows of Doubt worth buying right now? Let's take a trip through these dark and dirty dystopian streets to find out. Shadows of Doubt takes place in the year 1979 in the United Atlantic States. Due to rising sea levels, most of the country is made up of cities that have become like islands unto themselves. The country is run by the megacorporation Starch Cola, soft drink manufacturer, and they employ enforcers, a brutal authoritarian police force, to keep both citizens and rival corporations in check. You take the role of a private investigator, and like many of the other working class citizens, your goal is to earn enough credits to retire to a place called the Fields, though few normal citizens ever make it there. You have two game modes to choose from when you start a new game: a short tutorial mission that shows you the ins and outs of investigation, and Sandbox, which will drop you into a procedurally generated city of your choosing and leave you to your own devices. It's probably best to start with the tutorial, The Dead of Night. Shadows of Doubt has some complex mechanics, and there are certain things you'll want to do to ensure you find all the necessary clues for your investigation. The Dead of Night starts you in your apartment during the, dead of night. You receive a mysterious phone call and find an anonymous note that's been slipped under your door telling you to find a particular person. And the name of this person changes depending on what city you've started in. So you can choose different cities each time you start a new game, and the details of this investigation will change also, though the main things you'll need to do will stay the same. For me, here in Charlotte Heights, I was tasked with finding Ani Johnson, or Jernson. I don't know how you pronounce umlauts, that's my best guess. Once you figure out where they live by checking the city directory, you navigate to their apartment. The first thing that's, of course, striking about Shadows of Doubt is its voxel-crafted world and characters, along with its grimy neo-noir art style. As mentioned, the streets are dirty, as are most of the apartments and areas you'll be creeping through. The scale of things is impressive. Each building has explorable rooms with NPCs who keep their own schedules. There are hundreds of citizens, and anyone could be involved in an investigation over the course of a playthrough. The dev's goal was to make a living, breathing city after all, and they've sort of nailed that. You can set the size of your city when you start a playthrough, though just know that the bigger it is, the longer it will take to generate and load everything in whenever you start up the game. You'll also probably run into more performance issues this way. Speaking of performance, the game can stutter a lot and has micro freezes. I've had objects fall through floors and have been teleported through floors and walls myself. It also has pretty high system specs. They recommend at least a 1060. I just so happened to have a GTX 1060 in a laptop, and it was running okay, with anti-aliasing at low and all the extra bells and whistles turned off. On my main 3070 with settings at high and things like bloom and motion blur and depth blur turned off, I was still getting frame dips of around 40 with the frame rate capped at 60. The devs have already mentioned that they're hard at work on bugs and performance upgrades, but yeah, it can be rough, even on beefier hardware. We'll just have to see how things get ironed out as they continue development. Anyway, back to our investigation. You make your way over to the apartment of the person you're looking for. Knocking yields no answer, so it's time to improvise and find another way in. There's always the building's ventilation system. I'll get into that later. But for now, this dummy left a spare key under his doormat. Upon entering the apartment and snooping around, you'll find the owner dead. This begins the investigation, where you'll need to analyze the body, take fingerprints with your print scanner, and search the apartment for clues. Wallets, IDs, address books, and notes left around will give you leads for whom and where you should investigate next. Don't forget to check the trash, too. You can also access computers, known as crunchers in the world, and print out V-mails, which stand for vacuum mails. Buildings are full of these vacuum tubes that send mail around, and the crunchers can catalog them. Kind of reminds me of the movie Brazil. All the information you find can be handily organized on your caseboard. Here you can pin different bits of information and create connections. If you're into organization, you're going to have a lot of fun messing around with this, and trying to put all the pieces of your case together. For those who are less organized, I'm sure this could turn into a nightmare. After gathering enough evidence, a couple of enforcers will show up at the door, so it's time to make your escape. Oh yeah, the enforcers don't take kindly to freelance types bumbling around their murder victims. Escaping through the air vents is the best way out, and man, I can't tell you how many times I got lost and almost froze to death inside of building air vents. That's right, you have statuses that affect your character, such as cold, wet, hunger, as well as smell, so be sure to stay dry, eat, and shower every once in a while. And that's good advice for real life as well. There are also weirder effects that you can get, such as a cola addiction. This one I got as a result of one of the upgrades that I installed. This is a cyberpunk kind of world after all, so synthetic upgrades are a thing. The first one you'll likely get is a reward of sorts for solving the first case, and it will give you a bunch of money in your account at the cost of making you horribly addicted to starch cola, and that addiction is real. I was constantly swigging cans and searching streets and buildings for a vending machine for my next fix. Oh, hold on. Yeah, okay. Ugh. Oh, now what's up? I won't spoil the ins and outs of the tutorial investigation, but it will lead to several other people and places. Shadows of Doubt makes sure to warn you that sometimes leads will turn cold, and you'll need to double back and try another clue or look closer at some other piece of evidence you've collected. Along the way, you'll contend with security systems, as well as locked doors that require keys, lockpicking, or just busting them down to get through. Sir? Sir? Talking to citizens and asking if they've seen anything unusual or know your Vic is useful. Some people are willing to help you with your investigation, others don't care, or will actively hinder you. Once you've gathered your evidence and can point to the killer, you'll need to fill out a murder case resolution form from City Hall. The more evidence you have, the higher the reward for solving the case. You'll also be docked credits if you get things wrong. You can even attempt to arrest your suspect for a bonus, but you'll need to be stealthy to get that to work. Or, you know, just knock them out. Ma'am, do not make this difficult. Ma'am, please. Ma'am? Ma'am, do not resist. Oh, God. Ma'am? Ma'am? You're under arrest. After solving your first case, this is where the real game begins. You earn social rank for solving cases and completing jobs, but it's up to you to check the job listings in diners and at City Hall. You'll also get notified of new murders that have taken place in the city and can go investigate them. Murders are the real bread makers, but some of the other jobs are interesting too, like finding stolen items or tracking down and stealing things from certain people, or just public humiliation, where you throw food in somebody's face and take a photo of it. Rising through social ranks gives you additional perks, and you can eventually afford better accommodations or buy additional items to help with investigations. Raise your rank to max and retire from the grind. This whole gameplay loop is really satisfying. Investigations require patience and some creative and critical thinking, especially once you get past the tutorial. Even in this early state with some of the bugs and jank, I feel like it nails what it's setting out to do, making you feel like a private dick, sleuthing it up in this sleazy city, getting into scraps, narrowly escaping detection while frantically scanning for clues. So then, back to our original question, is it worth buying Shadows of Doubt in early access right now? I hate to say this, but not yet. Even if you think the core loop of investigations, side jobs, and exploring a huge interactive city is enough, I'd still give it a few more updates before jumping in. There's a lot of jank and bugs that need to be quashed. There were also times where I just couldn't figure out how to move forward on an investigation and had to abandon it. I understand a lead going cold, but multiple cold leads gets a bit annoying. There might need to be some tweaking done on how the game generates clues. But I think once the updates the devs have planned come through, this is going to be a really expansive and interesting game to dig into. There's a lot more detail about the world and gameplay that I didn't even talk about, but best to let other players discover it on their own. Still, in its current state, Shadows of Doubt is a lot of fun, and there's a lot here already to keep inquisitive players invested. The core gameplay loop is well done, and there are a lot of interesting things that can happen. Like when I was deep into my cola addiction and investigating a murder, I was also stinky from accidentally wandering into the flooded sub-basement of a building. I took a shower in the murder vic's apartment while I was looking for clues, but then got chased out by enforcers. In between needing to take swigs of cola to stave off the jitters, I punched out one of them and made my escape. Or the time I was trying to escape an office through the vents and ended up getting lost and finding my way into some dude's apartment and had to pick the lock to his front door in the dark to get out while he was waking up and about to turn on the lights. A situation that I'm sure we've all found ourselves in. Right? There are tons of stories that you'll create on your own, but none that will be created for you. The developers have already said that they don't plan on having an overarching story and are more interested in giving players a believable world to interact with, which is cool. And what they have here here is already pretty impressive, with lots of opportunities for emergent gameplay. But I don't know, I still think it would be cool to have a couple story investigations at certain points as you rise through the social ranks of the city, to give a bit more of an arc to your character and your journey to retirement. I mean, they already have some pieces set up with the Starch Cola megacorporation and the Enforcers. There are also named characters mentioned in some of the loading screens who are powerful figures in the city. I feel like you could tie something together into a neat little narrative there, but you know, it's just not their goal. If the idea of being a private investigator in a city and just catching bodies and hunting down suspects in between odd jobs sounds like enough for you, then you'll probably be alright jumping in now, as long as your PC can handle it. For everyone else, I'd say keep an eye on the dev blog for updates. So yeah, that's Shadows of Doubt. If you've played it, let me know what you think about the game in the comments. I'll probably do another video on it sometime in the future once they've released a few updates. So subscribe if you want to keep up on that, and for more indie retro goodness. Thanks for watching. Dungeon Chill, out.
Quand nous parlons, des gens réfléchissent. Responsable, fiable, temps réel. Chaque minute de chaque jour. Candor.